Hi, very good afternoon to all. Welcome to second School Tech Summit on 31st July. So I welcome Mr. Nikhil Vaga, Chairman EduCon International School, Pune. Welcome Nikhil sir, welcome to the School Tech Summit. Sir, can you switch on your mic?
Hello.
Hi sir, very good afternoon sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be amongst all of you today for the second School Tech virtual meet.
Thanks sir, same here sir. And I welcome Ms. Priti Kawatra, founder and director, Petals Group of Schools. She's live from Delhi. Welcome, Preeti ma'am. Welcome to the School Tech Summit.
Hello, everyone. Congratulations, Abhishek, for the second ELETS program.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. And we welcome Surbhi Goyal, CEO, Aditya Birla Education Trust Schools. She is live from Mumbai. Welcome, Surbhi ma'am. Welcome to the School Tech Summit.
Good afternoon, Abhishek. Good afternoon, Ravi. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here today.
Pleasure, ma'am. Pleasure to have you there, ma'am. And we have next panelist, Ms. Astha Kataria, Managing Trustee, Asoka Group of Schools. She is live from Nashik. Welcome, Astha, ma'am. Ma'am, can you switch on your mic?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
Very good afternoon, ma'am. And we have our esteemed panelist, Mr. Harsh Madhok, Director, Sunbeam Group of Institutions. He is directly live from Varanasi. Welcome, Harsh, sir. Welcome to the Tech Summit.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, everyone, and proud to be part of this second Tech Summit.
Thank you all the panelists to join this second School Tech Summit. And our topic is advancing life skills based education, strong foundation. So I request to all the participants to, if you have any questions, you can drop the questions in the QA section, and we are going to discuss and deliberate the life skills based education in this tech revolutions. So as you know, this in COVID era, we have just turned the U shape to the tech revolution. Physical interaction is very less. We are interacting through our technology, and in this, we are maintaining the life skills. So I request to each and every panelist to share their opening remarks for the 3 to 4 minutes regarding this COVID situation, regarding the challenges, and how life skills is important. Then we can move on to the further discussions. So I will start with Preeti ma'am. Preeti ma'am, your opening remarks regarding this life skills based education in this tech era and how we are dealing with it.
Are you asking from me?
Yes,
Your
ma'am.
voice is okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. A very good afternoon, everyone. In this era, as he said, I think we are not talking about this era or yesterday era. Life skill is a part of our life. We cannot ignore this thing. See, if we talk about, these are the skills which is required for anyone to be a successful or a good human being. In life skill, whenever we talk about confidence, whenever we talk about critical thinking, whenever we talk about problem solving, but just terms has definitely improved, I will say. Nowadays the students are not supposed to solve problem solving in the class, but they need to solve the problem online. Yes, they need to think critically online. Yes, it is a challenging situation for our teachers, for all educators, and for children too. Although we call them as a digital citizen, but this is a kind of a time which nobody has even imagined. This is a very painful situation, but I will say that all the educators and the teachers have done a wonderful job. In the 3 months, everybody has got trained, and they are taking care of educations in such a way that each child is learning. With this thought that every teacher is trying their level best, whether it is an implementation of what do you call it, software, whether it is a learning about the online classes, or whether it is taking care of each child. Initially, yes, children have some problem. Even I am in talking terms with many schools, students were facing problem because they are not into habit of learning from screen. But I think with time everybody is comfortable. Yes, teacher role has actually multiplied in such a way that now she is not only taking care of the subject, but she is a counselor also, and she is a coach also. She is supposed to take care of the mental well-being of a child also. She has to make sure that whenever she is taking online classes, each and every child should feel engaged. Each and every child should feel like I exist. Because when we talk about the life skills, life skill emerges out of connect. Life skill emerges out of, being feel important. So when teachers are taking classes online, although there is a mental stress, they are taking care of their mental health also, their responsibilities increases. So in that sense, what we are doing in our school, I would like to put light through that we are taking care of our teachers since beginning. Although we have given them a lot of training regarding how to take online classes, what are the key points you need to keep in mind. But at the same time, after every 15-20 days, we are giving them session with the counselors and psychologists also, that how they need to take care of their mental well-being. What is the importance of taking name of each child while you are taking online class? After every 15 minutes, they need to do the brain teasers. They need to, do energizers, so that each child feel engaged. Our classes are not like teacher is teaching from PPT and children are responding, but we have incorporated many, game software inbuilt our system. We have a lot of quizzes in our system, so that children should not feel bored. The biggest drawback of online learning is that child is sitting and teacher is teaching from PPT. I myself as a counselor don't want that. So we are taking care of our teacher men well-being through counselors and psychologists. But at the same time, we are teaching our teachers also that how to take care of the child mental health and well-being. Because at this moment, they are missing their social development, life skill, which is the most important part of any human being is social development. So we make sure that each and every child should feel engaged and important in this online learning.
Oh, thank you,
So
ma'am.
I
Thank you
think
for your
with
inputs.
time I will
We will
explain
discuss
more.
it. We will move to our next panelist. So,
Yeah.
Nikhil Vaga, sir, over to you. Your opening remarks regarding this life skills versus this tech revolutions.
Yes.
Yeah, Abhishek, my surname is Wagh.
Vag. Okay.
Yeah, WAGH, Nikhil
Okay.
Wagh. I'm the chairman of Edicon International School. The impact of COVID-19 on our schools and our community is rapidly changing by the minute. Hence, our responses and actions must also evolve accordingly. Now, as a country and the world is preparing, continuing its fight to flatten the pandemic curve, we as educators should deploy alternate methods to ensure that the learning curve of all our students moves upward. So in this regard, first, let me just aptly quote Sir Ken Robinson here. Education is a living process that can be best compared to agriculture. Gardeners know that they cannot make plants grow. They don't attach roots, glue the leaves, paint the petals. Plants grow by themselves. The job of the gardener is to create the best conditions for that to happen. Good gardeners create those conditions and others don't. It's same with teaching. Good teachers, educators create conditions for learning. As educators, we have to create interactive learning environments, innovative learning environments, which will add impetus to life skill based education. Like the previous panelist said, life skills is a very important thing and which will lay a strong foundation for all young people to live and work in the 21st century. There are innumerable life skills that are required in our lives, but the 10 prominent or the core set of life skills even laid down by the WHO: self-awareness, empathy, critical thinking, creativity, decision-making, problem solving, effective communication, interpersonal relationship, coping with stress and coping with emotions. Our education ecosystem should integrate life skills as a very important part of the learning outcomes aimed at the end of each level. We as educators should provide our learners a platform to learn a life skill by making our teaching learning process dynamic, more engaging and interactive. For example, we can incorporate development of all the prominent life skills in our curriculum by interweaving participatory learning activities like debates, discussion, role play, kits, web quest, project-based learning, TED clubs, the other school clubs, inter-school, school and intra-school competitions. Media can also be a very good platform, like by making students aware, teaching life skills through movies, through school radio, games, simulations, quizzes, assembly, and many more. Even sustainable development goals of UN can be a part of our life skill curriculum. In fact, life skill should be taken as a curriculum in our entire subject, but it cannot be just restricted to one subject. You know, life skill is an interdisciplinary subject. It happens in all the subjects that we teach. In English, math, science, you name the subject, and there is some life skill that is that can be attained while the child goes through the learning process. Like it is said, education is not just the amount of information that is put into a child's brain, undigested, unrelated, and unassimilated. The very essence of education is the concentration of mind and not mere collection and collation of facts. The concept of education should help the formation of character, expression of intellect, and development of a positive view of life. And this can be achieved only and only when our education ecosystem is life skill based. Now, in the current scenario, technology has taken a driver's seat due to the COVID-19 impact and the pandemic. But many schools were using technology even before COVID came. So those schools could, easily transit and had a seamless transition for doing online. Whatever I have mentioned before, all these things for imparting life skills can also be done through online classes. It's very much possible. The connect with the student is the most important thing in this, where the teacher connects with the class online and sees to it that the development of the life skill is also happening parallelly to the academic progress. Like life skills are abilities for adaptive and positive behavior that enables individuals to deal effectively with the demands and challenges of everyday life. Life skills enable individuals to transfer knowledge, attitude, and skills into actual abilities. That is, what to do and how to do it, given the scope and opportunity to do so. A classic example of this is educators across the globe have demonstrated resilience as a skill in this pandemic and ensured that education never stops. Now, this is one of the innumerable life skills. However, this could happen only because the core set of life skills have been developed amongst majority of our teachers and educators who have demonstrated adaptive and positive behavior to this pandemic challenge. So life skills is something, like I told you, it's a very participatory kind of a thing where you have to engage the student into the learning. At the same time, life skill cannot happen. It's a combination of many skills that are required to handle everyday challenges that are put to them. Life skills are also learned subconsciously, and the life skills are influenced by a lot of things like socioeconomic condition, the influence of the teacher, parent, and other educators. The basic purpose, even in this COVID-19 situation, is the teacher should have a connect with the children. They should involve the children through the online classes, see to it with the learning outcomes. The life skills are also attained by the child, and because this will lay a strong foundation, and we as educators can act as a catalyst for preparing this strong foundation for our students. I think
thanks, Nikhil sir. Inputs. Thanks, Nikhil sir. Your kind inputs, dynamic approach and connect is very important for achieving the life skills. Over to Harsh Madhok sir. Your opening remarks regarding the necessity of life skills and the reflection of life skills on the student's life.
So thank you everyone, and once again it's a wonderful opportunity to be with all of you. And we are living in COVID era, so obviously everything which I'm going to speak about, obviously it's going to be more towards what's happening with the COVID situation now. And the schools, the teachers have had to evolve rapidly So before COVID came, our teachers, we were doing some we were experimenting with the idea of online learning, and we had experimented with the idea of flipped learning also. But what COVID has done is that it has accelerated the move from traditional learning for the time being to online learning, as we are using, as my teachers from my school Sunbeam, they have become much more better at using these different tools and different apps to teach students. So it's there's a very wonderful line by Winston Churchill that you should never waste a good crisis, because in crisis things are not certain. And sometimes when things are too certain and there are too many rules and everything becomes too rigid, leadership doesn't emerge. So for example, nobody knew about the Zoom app 1 year ago, but all of a sudden we are using app, and we are utilizing how to keep people in the waiting room, and how to mute, and how to start a video. So it's such a challenge for all of us. But yes, for students as well, life-based skills at this moment is extremely important, because many of them, we never went through this crisis, so we don't know how it is. Like some of us who are slightly older, maybe they've seen the India-Pakistan war, but there were times when there were lights out, and you had to keep everything off. And we are kind of in that era where extreme importance is on life skills, hand sanitization, how to wear a mask. So all these things, and even digital sanitization, because in this era, there's a lot of hacking which has started. So children all of a sudden have to become extremely aware of how their personal data and how your data can be hacked from digital hacking. So all these things have also increased, and how to save your KYC details. So there's a lot of things which are happening right now. A lot of survival skills we are learning on the fly. So it's an interesting time.
Well input, sir, regarding digital sanitizations, leadership skills, and never waste the crisis, good crisis. We will discuss the further points also. Coming to Survi ma'am, your opening remarks regarding this life skills and why is it so necessity in this digital era? Right now, how sir just remark that digital sanitization is also important. So value part of the life skills in the students' reflections of their life. So over to you, Survi ma'am.
Abhishek, can you just repeat the last sentence that you said?
And implementations of importance of the life skills for the students in the reflection of their life in the future prospects.
Okay, so essentially what is life skill, right? Life skill is just having the ability to adapt and have a positive attitude to deal with whatever are the demands and challenges of everyday life. And while we can all speak about the whole COVID situation and how people, school, organizations, countries have had to be flexible and agile and have to quickly adapt, I mean, that really is the entire essence of having a strong, a strong life skill. I was just looking at LinkedIn the other day, and there was this example of this gentleman. He put a post where he said he used to be a front office executive at a 5-star hotel. And because the way tourism has been hit so badly, he has set up a shop on a highway, selling those sports shoes and bags, etc. And he said, I'm not embarrassed. I need to feed my family, and this is something that I need to do. I think if just this quality of being able to quickly change ourselves, if this is the one quality that we can give our children, that would be such an important, life skill that we can give them. But then having said that, I'm a little bothered with this comment about this being the need of an hour, because schools across ages have always tried to create good men and women, according to whatever was the definition of times. So, as even Preeti mentioned, has always been here to stay. And, we just need to keep adapting and, growing. But again, this is again something that Preeti covered, which I think resonates very strongly with me, is developing mental health wellness amongst our students as well as our teachers. So I think mental literacy is something that has become more pronounced over the years and should be incorporated as an important life skill.
Well inputs, ma'am, Survi ma'am. And coming to Astha ma'am, your opening remarks regarding this life skills, ma'am.
I was happy to hear, a blend of thought process which each of the panelists mentioning here, and I could resonate with so many of them. So as Ms. Surbhi mentioned, like, life skill, what is life skill? It is, being successfully adapting to this changing world and finding exploring continuously how you can thrive. The example which she gave, we have so many such examples in front of us where individuals, they survived, and they kind of very successfully emerged successfully in this crisis situation. Because yes, we who are here right now, we're in a very comfortable zone, but there are so many individuals who have lost their jobs, or who have suffered huge losses in their businesses or whatsoever, and they have still come out with a lot of innovative, creative ideas. In fact, a lot of innovation has taken place in this COVID situation. So these are the life skill implementations which individuals are doing. When it comes to our students, I believe this is a very, very important and learning time for them. It's a blessing in disguise. And, this is again a zone where they are getting a lot of life skills. Yes, there is a constraint on social connectivity, on that physical interaction with the teacher, coming to school and really taking up the learning the way we imagine them to. But apart from that, they have adapted to these changes within no time. And they have, the families have changed. There's a lot of positivity which is engaged in this COVID situation, is how I see. And this learning would not have been possible without this happening. And this taught us a lot. May it be a child, may it be a parent, may it be an educational institute. Somebody said, we have been traditional, though yes, as Mr. Harsh mentioned, we incorporated flipped classroom, we incorporated blended learning. But now we exactly know that where, what is, too much, and where we need to stop, where we need to allow the exploration of the child, and what can be the right mix. So I think this gave a very good opportunity to open up the minds of teachers, parents, and students. And we as an educational institution, we have kind of progressively thought about what should be, our action plan here onwards. And one very important element which I would just focus here right now is, because the rest of the elements have been already communicated, but one very strong part of life skill I see is, having the right mindset, the growth mindset. And I think that sums up all, core domains. If I have the growth mindset, I have that ability, I have developed that ability to, take challenges, adjust with the setbacks which I have, again, rise up and start my journey again. And I think in this so-called VUCA world, which we keep talking about, this is very, very essential. It brings a lot of advancements, a lot of positives. At the same time, it brings in challenges which can be tackled if I have a strong EQ and I have a strong growth mindset. So I think, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Asa ma'am. Well, nice inputs. My question to each panelist right now, there's a one major concern of each parents as well as teachers, that right now technologies exist by each and every student in via social media, via Google search. So it's very important question is come from the parents, many parents, that how we monitor this technology breach, that my children is working on the good technology, he's not deviating from the path. So how schools are planning to monitor this technology breach across this student, that they should access good content rather than molding to the bad content. So how the school are planning and how our school are working on this regarding this technology breach. So my question to start from Harsh Madhok, he talked about the digital sanitization. So how schools are monitoring the students regarding this technology, because previously we are not allowing mobiles in the schools. Right now, each and every student has mobile in their own hand, and they have access to the Google, what they are doing in the Facebook, on their social media. Nobody is knowing. So how you are cooperating this situation?
So we have like a digital hygiene like checklist, which we keep distributing and we keep updating, because for the time being, we thought that we would move to a different platform because there was some security issues with Zoom. I think there was 16-bit encryption, and recently they came up with the 32-bit encryption. So after that, suddenly it was harder for people to just pop into somebody else's window and come in. There were a lot of things which were happening, and obscene content was being shared. So fortunately, what's happened is that some of the things are evolving, and we are keeping in touch with all the things which are going on. So for example, you have different sorts of virtual private networks which we have encouraged schools to take, and there are different obviously programs on that, and there's McAfee software for virus. And once the children know about these things and about avoiding websites where they shouldn't go, perhaps keeping the lid off on your Mac, on your laptop off if you're not using it, because sometimes you don't know how even that can get hacked. So a lot of new issues and a lot of new with digitalization. There's a lot of new security concerns which have also popped up, and there's a lot of people now who are in the field of ethical hacking, and those people can obviously assist us in making sure that we are able to mitigate some of the risk which we are facing with the digitization of everything around us. So we are basically just sharing that kind of content with our children. We're having webinars and in our classrooms, and we're making sure that the children know from time to time. We're updating what are the do's and don'ts of being online.
Well said, Harsha. This is a very important point regarding the updating the children's, that what is the do's and don'ts for the online. So Preeti ma'am, your inputs regarding this technology, how we can monitor the students, that how to use their social media and where we have to put our account, and how to schools are monitoring such kind of activities of students. Ma'am, can you?
Yeah. My net is creating little problem. This is a challenge we all have with technology. I am able to hear your question in parts, and my screen is freeze as of now.
I can repeat my question. Is that, ma'am, right now parents is little more concerned about the digital reach of students.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how school are monitoring such kind of activities, that social, right now each and every student have their own mobiles and their own social media handles, and they are tracking each and everything. So what kind of guidance and what kind of SOP has been done by the schools? So what are your suggestions, ma'am?
Okay. Whatever I have heard, I will try to answer that. This is a very, very appropriate question at this moment of time, because most of the children on half of the day, either they are sleeping or either they are in front of the screen. We cannot deny this fact that we cannot ask them to leave the screen and do this thing or that thing. First, initially, your first question was regarding the life skill. Although we all are trying our level best through these screen time to imbibe life skills in our children, but at the same time, I believe whenever you want to stop any kind of wrong action, either you need to educate the person, or the second thing is you need to tell the person what are the pros and cons and what would be the consequences for that, right? If suppose government want we should follow traffic rule, first the government will educate us, and then the government will put some punishment or some taxes or whatever. In the same way, what we have done, I will definitely talk about the Petals group only. What we have done is we are doing rather lot of training related to the plus and minus of screen time. We are educating our children, we are educating our parents, and we are using those kind of a software, so that whenever child's come on immediately come online, parent got an alert and the school got an alert if it is a online something related to the school. And at the same time, whenever the child is exiting, that also we got to know one thing. And the second most important thing what we are doing with the middle school children and the primary school children is, like children above class 5, is we are educating them, we are telling them about the cyber safety, we are telling them about that how to take care of themselves, and how to make sure that they should not get caught into wrong things through screen times. But at the same time, we are telling them how to take care of their eyes. And but parents are really very worried. Parents need more education, more support, because we have seen children above 12 years of age, they are actually going to face a lot of wrong things which they should not. I think in that we need to train our parent to be with the child as much as they can, so that they can help the children to guide what to watch and what not to watch, and how to keep yourself safe, because this screen time and this digital time can be a boom or a bane both.
Nice input, Preeti ma'am.
I think I am able to answer whatever you have asked.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And coming to Nikhil sir. Nikhil sir, to hold the student's life, we are preparing the students for the success. We are not discussing about what happens when the failure comes. So what your suggestions to all the schools and the parents, that other than success, we should discuss about the failure also, that how we deal with the failure. So what your suggestion to the schools and other parents and the students, that how to deal the failure? Sir, can you switch on your mic?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Basically, success and failure are the words that depend upon the perception of a person. While this life skill, we are talking of life skill based education. Here is where the life skills will help a student to understand, the benefits of success and the repercussions of failure. Failure is to be taken as a step to success. The first step to success could be failure. Curiosity is something that we should try to, inbuild in all our children. Invention, because if they fail, the all inventions happen, or when you have inventions or innovations, there are a lot of failures. There's a history of failures. So failures is something that students should be able to cope with. And how they will be able to cope with that is the emotional dimension that will be, built in the children as and when they learn the life skill based education. So coming back to my original point was, we should ensure that the life skill based education is so strong that it handles the emotional quotient, the social quotient, the academic, the intellectual dimension, the physical dimension, and the creative dimension. So once we give them an opportunity to take part in this kind of an education, they will be able to handle success as well as failures as and when, because both of them are challenges of life. So life skill based education, the basic purpose is to enable the children to handle effectively the challenges that come in their day-to-day life. So I look at it as a failure being a challenge which the child will be able to cope with if his foundation, that is the life skills that are inculcated in him through our education ecosystems, are strong. Having said that, learning falls in three various categories. That is the knowledge, the skill, and the attitude. Now, the knowledge is learning facts and concepts. Skills is learning how to do a thing, and attitude is learning to form a new and a different viewpoint or a belief. Now, this attitude part will play a major role in handling a success or a failure. So this learning, which falls in this three different categories, this learning will happen when life skill based education is at the core of our curriculum. That's what I feel. Coming to your last question also, I wanted to address one point, was about digital literacy. Digital literacy is also a very important part, where we have to, tell our parents and even our students to handle this new platform. As it is new for the educators, it is also new for the parent community and the students. So to inform them about do's and don'ts of how to handle digital literacy, and the school also takes proper precautions to see to it that the platform that we deploy is, secured from the students' point of view. Coming back to again success and failures, I think I have told my perception about it, and I think that will give you a broad answer of your question.
Yes, Nikhil sir, curiosity should be built among the students. And I think all the participants who are listening must tell to other students and the educators that how to deal with the success and the failure scenarios. So coming to Survi ma'am, my question to you, that can life skills be added as a subject in the schools? It's a simple but a very important question that has been raised by the many educators and the.
Abhishek, very, very important questions. Of course, I do not think that life skill can be taught as a separate subject. I remember when growing up, we used to have a subject called moral sciences, and you would listen to Aesop's fable and all kind of stories which had a moral in the end. I'm sure it had an impact, but having said that, teaching life skill has to be a way of life, and it has to be, I think Mr. Wagh also mentioned, interdisciplinary in that sense. But I like to point out an exemption here that, something that we're doing differently at our schools, because like I mentioned, mental health literacy for us is really important. We have a 1 hour session every week across the curriculum, across the school, which is called Minds Matter. Now, this is a mental health curriculum put together by our counselors and our therapists over the last few years. This is a safe space for children to be able to talk about gender equality, eating disorders, depression, anxiety, and all of that. And this is maybe perhaps because we think this is so important, that is something that they may not be comfortable talking to maybe their homeroom teachers or everybody else. We have set aside an hour to do this. So, to kind of sum up, I think it should be interdisciplinary. But if there is something that's really important and cannot be incorporated, it is all right to also set aside time for something like that.
Nice input, Surbi ma'am. Interdisciplinary, I think in our national education policy, we are coming up with the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. And coming to Astha ma'am, right now we are much talking about Atmanirbhar. Everybody is talking about Atmanirbhar. So how we, from post-COVID also, we are talking about the entrepreneurship skills among the students. So what do's and don't schools should follow to generate the entrepreneurship and the leadership skills among the students? And what your schools is following to generate such kind of skills among the students?
Very interesting question. Entrepreneurship, or I think entrepreneurship is a term which is linking to a lot of, again, life skills, which is linked to, being creative, being innovative, being confident to, to take up something which is within you and make it a viable model and, pursue your passion or purpose. So I think it is a combination of all these things. And entrepreneurship is, again, like life skill. It cannot be taught through a subject. It is something which is evolved in an individual where he or she gets a conducive environment, and that environment has to be provided by school. That environment has to be facilitated well by the parents. And then we see that student is somebody emerging as a risk taker, is confident, is having that critical thinking and problem solving attitude, and is able to sustain and has that persistence to take up all these setbacks also, because it's always a curve. It is never like, I don't believe that it's always a graph which is going up. Even if it is so, we have to have that skill to take up and handle the situation wherever there is a challenge. When it comes to our school, I think entrepreneurship begins with a very simple fundamental of keeping student at the center, and that brings student-led events. That brings student-led activities, maybe assembly, maybe so we have a concept of, say, art exhibition, where more than 3,000 products, like we have a school base where we have students of almost 5,000 students from pre-primary till grade 12. And we have more than 3,000 artifacts which are displayed by our school students over a period of 2 days. So, in that, we ensure that students are not just creating the product, which they do throughout the year. They are also, identifying how do I, what price should I sell this product? At what, how do I market the product? So they are across the counters for those 2 days where we have visitors more than 10,000 plus. and they would be the ones who would be the marketing, they would be the one who would be managing the finances, they would be the one who would be empathizing with the needy section of the society. So we run a lot of such programs which kind of brings up these entrepreneurship skills in them. That is one, by doing. Second is by role modeling, where again a very strong alumni connect is something which we establish, where these students look up to their peers on what they have done, how they have done, and how they can model that. Another element is like through events like MUN, through events like TED Talks, where again it's a role modeling, where they understand what have been the, as you asked, I think Mr. Nikhil, that the failure stories also should be heard, and students should know that failing is, or failure or success is a perspective, is a relative term. And I think that is very, very important for one to understand, because I need to be strong enough. I'm again linking it to the growth mindset. I need to be strong enough to, engage myself again and take a step forward after I experienced a failure, or experienced something which I could not achieve, which I have targeted. So, entrepreneurship has a lot to do with these. At the same time, our students are engaged into a lot of industry-related, engagements, where we have small courses designed for them, where they go and they learn and they develop that skill. So I think it's a combination of, knowing the commercial angle, the basic finances. So we have a financial literacy program running through, which talks about so just to give an example, I'm an engineer, and who after engineering understood what is finance, what is debit and credit, because in our education system, it didn't used to exist. But I think now it is very important for students to know these basics, because these are life skills. We have to engage them with the real world. I think that is very, very important. Once we start engaging everything to real world, entrepreneurship comes along, because they start relating to what they are learning from a realistic perspective. And I think that's the beginning.
Well inputs, ma'am, and your Alumni Connect regarding the entrepreneurship is one of the great step. I think every school should do that so that what their peers are doing, they can know how things can be achieved. So moving forward, ma'am, and to all the panelists, there is a latest advancement in the education with the National Education Policy 2020. We all have gone through about it. So I want to take the remarks that what panelists think about this National Education Policy, because it's come down in the papers. We have gone through it regarding the school and the higher education. So coming to the Harshal, what your views regarding this National Education Policy, and how you are seeing the future if it implicated from the papers to our current scenarios right now?
So I think the NEP has basically, after 34 years, they have come up with the NEP, and they have been talking about 6% of the GDP being set aside for education. So they said that 6% they want to, but it's still a pipe dream, because Kothari Commission and all of that, which came in the 70s and 60s, they also said that 6% of the GDP has to be given, but it's still a pipe dream. So right now we have to, there is a spirit, and then there is a roadmap, and sometimes there is lots which is lost, in the middle of, lost in translation. But having said that, there are some beautiful things which they have come up with. They've spoken about reducing the content and making it less. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, sir.
So they've spoken about reducing the curriculum and reducing the content, so that children have more time for value-based education and perhaps project-based learning. So they've spoken about those ideas, and now that children have a little bit more time, the school can have the flexibility to set up some project-based learning experiments in their lesson plans. So in the lesson plans, they can come up with some summer vacation homework, where they can send children off to doing some extensive real life based projects. And I feel that if we can work, if the teachers and the academic community can work together with the national curriculum framework, we can come up with some beautiful programs. Some of them have already been discussed in websites like Edutopia. So they have they come up with brilliant, project-based learning, things which people can do. So if we look at integrating that, and every area, every school, every community has their different set of problems. So to come up with projects which can help the community at the practical level, that is the challenge which now we are looking at solving. So instead of thinking that I have my knowledge base and how do I apply that knowledge base into the real world, we are asking the reverse question. There is a problem in the world. Now, how do I apply, what knowledge do I need? I use everything I have from the internet as a library, and how do I reverse engineer and apply and use that knowledge to solve a real life problem? So I think that's something which the NEP has looked into. I do reserve my opinion that perhaps changing English as the main language of communication, which may not be a good idea. I think we should not be looking at that. But apart from that, the NEP looks fine, and we can obviously, we'll have to still implement it, and we still have to execute it. And this laws, that's where the whole the devil is in the details, I believe.
Well input, sir. Reverse process is very important, and language is every time an important concern because India is a very vast country. So coming to Surabhi ma'am, your views regarding this national education policies, how you see in the future, and what is the positive aspect and what negative aspect you see that it will be removed from the NEP?
So long awaited, very glad to finally see the policy come out. I think some of the salient features that sort of stood out for me, one of the things that I really liked is the possibility of being able to do a subject at a standard level and at the high level. So for example, currently the ICSE, you can drop science and math completely, but the International Baccalaureate does allow you to study a subject at 2 different levels of difficulties, which is wonderful, because you don't want to kind of eliminate an important subject. So that being offered, I think, is a lovely addition. Blurring the line between co-curricular, extracurricular activities, again, because interdisciplinary is the way forward. So you can't be saying, hey, now you're going into an IT room to study IT. Technology is, it's the platform, it's a resource. It is not something that you go into a room to do. So just kind of bridging that gap and bringing all of it together, I think is extremely important. Harsh already mentioned reducing the course content. I think I'm a mom of 12-year-old, and I see those big bulky textbooks. Very happy to see that, hopefully the course content will finally come down. Regulating the pre-primary, wonderful initiative again, because, you have pre-primary, preschools running out of shops and galas and garages. That's not the way it should be done. So it'll be nice if it's somewhere regulated. Coding being included as a language, as a subject from grade 6 onwards, great move. We know that technology, is going to be a life skill. This needs to be included. So I think that's also a positive, kind of move. Also, what really, sort of appealed to me is just making the whole B.Ed course, that integrated B.Ed course, and making the quality check of the people who actually get into teaching. I know teaching is still not aspirational, but we need to make sure that we have the right people getting into teaching, and they are also equipped with the right knowledge and tools to be able to do that. So teacher training, I think, has been highlighted. Also a mention about mental health being important. So, that is something very, very heartening to see. What are the negatives? I think Harsh has, kind of summarized that well. We'll have to see how it pans out, because it all looks beautiful in those 80 pages that have been put together, but it's not an easy task, and we'll see how, we move along and actually incorporate all these changes. Thank you.
Well inputs, ma'am. सही बोला मैम आपने. लिखित में सब अच्छा लगता है, अभी इम्प्लीमेंट होगा तब देखते हैं. और coming to Nikhil sir, your views regarding this national education policies and regarding this critical thinking, creative mindset, and growth. So, what your views regarding this?
The national education policy, like our co-panelist said, was much awaited, and it has a very pragmatic approach, and if implemented to the core, will have a paradigm shift in way the education is happening in our country from years. Now, two, three very important things. First, in the national education policy, it envisages our topic, that is the life skills. Life skills at the end of each level, life skills to be attained at the end of each level, it envisages that, it acknowledges that, that's a great thing. Second thing is about vocational skills from 6th standard onwards. This is something that is really out of the box idea, and it is the need, because what happens is our school education till 12th doesn't support any kind of a vocational skill, which is a very prime aspect from the student's point of view. If he has some vocational skill, he will be able to live and work after he completes his basic education, say till standard 12. So that's something very great about vocational skills. The next thing that I feel is the NEP itself, again, gives a lot of stress on critical and computational thinking. When they say like introducing coding as a subject, or when they talk about life skills, or when they talk about moving away from rote method, the examination part of it, and moving towards a more pragmatic approach towards assessment also. So this itself adds a lot of impetus to the critical and computational thinking skills, the design thinking skills. So overall, if you take a bird's eye view of the NEP, prima facie, theoretically, it looks very great, and it is the way education should be. But when you come down to the minute part of it, there are certain nitty-gritties, like the language, the medium of teaching should be a regional language. So I don't know how practical it's going to be, or it will be amended in the due course. But other than this medium of teaching, all points seem to be very futuristic. They seem to be very it excites me about the whole education policy, because it is, first of all, moving from the rote method, and second thing is it is engaging the learner in the learning journey. It is giving opportunities to school to design the curriculum, to frame their policies in such a way where they engage the learner in his own learning, and that will motivate the entire process. See, the purpose of education is a medium or a purpose to achieve holistic well-being of an individual. So this policy, I think, gives a lot of scope for doing that. So I welcome it. We have not gone through the nitty-gritties, but overall it's a good change that our country is looking forward to after 34 years.
Thank you very much, Nikhil sir. Well input, sir. You have given all the aerial view of the national education policy. Coming to Preeti ma'am. Preeti ma'am, your views regarding this policy, and what is the future aspects, and what is the impact on the students of this policy that come in the latest advancement? Ma'am, can you switch on?
Thank you so much, Abhishek. First of all, we all should be very happy that reform is happening, and it has happened. And there are many plus points in this policy. I think the main engine of this this NEP is the experiential learning. They have focused on creativity. They have focused on collaborative learning. They want children to involve in exploratory activities so that they can actually experience where they can actually apply their knowledge. Which will complement this experiential learning is interactive classrooms. Yes, when the subjects are integrated and when children will interact with each other about the topic, they will do group discussions, then definitely they have a different kind of thinking, so that they will become a problem solver. Altogether, it is an integrated 360-degree program which will actually enhance the core essential skills for a good student or a good successful person. Once experiential learning come into the system, then all the education, whatever students will get, will become competent. All the subjects will be integrated according to this new NEP. Children should have scientific temperament. This is a very, very nice thing which should be appreciated by everyone. And at the same time, which I like the most is they have actually take care of the physical and mental well-being of the child. They have mentioned about bags should not be heavy. They should talked about the regular health checkup has to be there. They have also talked about that focus has to be on the children which are disabled. These are the innovative things which I think now everybody should think and should pay attention to. And the best thing is that in that it has given equal weightage to all the subjects. And they are not going to decide if the child can do maths, then only the child is intelligent. Now the children, just like IB board, the children can take maths with arts also. They can do two subject and two stream together, and which is a new need for tomorrow. Every child who is good in maths can also be good in arts, and a child should have this thing. Since from last quite a few years, I really want CBSE or the Indian school should have this system. And now I'm very happy that a new NEP is actually giving them the scope that children can explore multiple subject, and children can excel in the subject and in the skill, and wherever they really want to be. Because if the subjects are integrated according to the new NEP, the children will definitely become very competent. They will know where to apply their knowledge, and this will give them a new vision towards the world, which is very very important. And the third most important thing which I like is assessment. Now they have not made, if you observe the NEP very carefully, they have not made any assessment become the benchmark who will decide whether the child is intelligent or not. Assessment will be only there just to understand whether the concept is clear to the child or not, and which is actually very very important. This will take all the teachers and the children away from rote learning. Examination have taken a new shape and a new form. We hope for the best. After applying or reading this NEP thoroughly, children and school both will get benefit out of it.
Thanks,
It will
Preeti
become a
ma'am.
holistic approach.
Thanks, Preeti ma'am. Your well inputs. Anything that you want to highlight that it should not be in the NEP?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
Ma'am, anything you want to highlight that it should not be in the NEP? We should like Harsh sir told, Nikhil sir raised the point of language. Language would be a barrier for in future prospects. So, Preeti ma'am, your any point that you have think that such kind of like thing language can be a barrier in the future prospects?
I'm really sorry. I have not understood properly, but I have heard few words. If you're talking about the language part, language is never a barrier. Languages, we all have to understand. Language is just a medium to convey our message. If they have given that school should use mother tongue till class 5 or till class 6, it can be taken as an asset also. Now the parents, those who select school, those are only speaking in English, that my child is going to become very, very good communicator. But research has also proven that those children, those who are good in their mother tongue, can learn other languages also. This will not be a barrier, but this will work as an asset. I believe so. Yes.
Thank you, Preeti ma'am. Thank you for your
Bye.
inputs. Coming to Astha ma'am, your inputs regarding this national education policy, then we will come to the concluding remark, ma'am.
Okay, I think a lot has already been spoken.
Ma'am, your mic is switched off. Can you switch on your mic?
Sorry. I think a lot has already been spoken about national education policy. We have already gained a lot of perspectives. All I can say here is that it is a very futuristic, carrying a lot of futuristic approach. And but the success of this policy lies in the implementation and the time it takes for an effective implementation. Because yes, the groundwork is really child-centric, and when I say child-centric, is focusing on the right development of the child, giving the right environment of education, focusing on all right things. But when it comes to execution, it would involve a lot of phase-wise planning, a lot of training and development which has to be taken, the curriculum designing, because everything is looking very flowery when it comes to the draft. But when it comes to execution, it has to be taken to that level. And if it is, then it is going to have a paradigm shift, as Mr. Nikhil sir said. It is going to, take a revolutionary stage of imparting education. And I think it is long awaited. Educational institutions, in their own capacity, they've been taking up a lot of elements of NEP as a whole. But, this I'm talking about mainly private educational institutions. But when it comes to, the overall educational standard in the country, NEP is going to have a lot of positive impact if it is implemented to that capacity. Since we are also into international curriculum, I can see a lot of these happening in international curriculums. Like, when we talk about not vocational course per se, but again, experiential learning. When we talk about choosing major and minor, choosing math along with music. So, all these things are a very integral part, integrated based approach of learning, project based learning. So I think once it is, but for all this to happen, teachers training is the pivotal. The parents understanding about, moving from those marks to grades, and, that shift within is very, very important. And that would take some time. But yes, if it is an effort from all the directions, and it is not getting suppressed by any political benefit and other stuff which comes along the way, if we are able to surpass all these challenges, it is going to be very beneficial for our country. Thank you.
Nice input, ma'am. Are you getting my voice?
Yes.
So we are coming to the closing this session. So there is one last question that I want to ask to all panelists. That Surbhi ma'am raised one question, that teaching is not aspirational. Surbhi ma'am, while discussing, so Surbhi ma'am has raised one, teaching is not aspirational. So what should the best practice we should do that it become aspirational, ma'am? So Surbhi ma'am, coming to you, ma'am, that we can start with you, that what best practices we can do in the education scenarios that it become aspirational as well as the most essential service also, ma'am.
So Abhishek, I'm still soul searching for that answer. Actually, I'm a chartered accountant by profession. While growing up, I used to love to teach. I didn't take up teaching, and possibly, for the same reason that, I didn't think it was aspirational. And even today, if you were to walk into a classroom and ask a bunch of kids, what do you want to do when you grow up? You may even get an answer that, you want to be a DJ or a barber and whatnot under the sun, but there's not too many people who will talk about, growing up to become a teacher. But I think, it'll have to be a shift over many, many different platforms. So I think, paying teachers well, training them, that would really, so I think it happens from, as school leaders, we have the responsibility to do that. And, teachers are actually very, very celebrated. Like, so when we look back in our life, we'll always remember our grade 5 teacher because she said a kind word to us. So in India, teachers are really, really, looked up on, but teaching is not aspirational. So in fact, I would ask my panelists, tell me how to make teaching more aspirational. I don't really have a, very, very good answer to that yet.
So coming to Astha ma'am, if you want to.
No. I'm just adding another perspective. Like, so we, apart from our school education, we are into plain B.Ed and integrated BSc B.Ed and BA B.Ed programs. And I can so relate to Ms. Surbhi, where, when we see enrollments in plain B.Ed, there are many. But we in fact, as an institution, we came up with this integrated program, and we got it registered with the Pune University. And the whole idea was that B.Ed has to be value, deriving for the candidate who's enrolling. But still, to our, I would not say surprise, but the sad reality is that there hardly are individuals when they move out from 12th grade, they don't aspire to be a teacher. There would be individuals who aspire to, like, another kuch nahi mila, at the last, okay, let me be a good teacher. Let me try to be a good teacher. Or also a lot of individuals, a lot of females, we see it's a female dominant industry when we talk about teachers. So, a lot of them, they find it very convenient to handle the family, the child, and, take it as a profession, though it is very time consuming, it is very responsible job, but still the kind of a few privileges it gives, it becomes very comfortable. But when it comes as a choice, it comes from your within, it comes as a passion, we don't see that happening. And that's a lot to do with how the whole society is structured, and what have been our policies when it comes to their payments, when it comes to their recognition in the society, how teachers are looked up to, and that is changing to some extent. Even teachers have to be vigilant about this change, because we say teachers are transformational agents, they are change makers, and students, as Ms. Surbhi mentioned, students should look up to that. Okay, this is the teacher who influenced me, and this is a teacher who was with me, hand holding me when I was needing that emotional support. And teacher has to be one rather who knows you more than a parent does to some extent in a lot of cases. And that's what makes a teacher a teacher. We term it as an educator in our institute. We don't call them as teachers, because it's much.
In this COVID situation, don't you think that education become the most non-essential services? So where this we get this patient, how we can become the more aspirational?
Who says so that education has become non-essential? In fact, even I would speak as a parent. I can comfortably do my work in office today because I know that my child is being taken care emotionally, academically, socially, also in a virtual world though. And those elements are being absorbed by my child just because of the school, just because of his teachers. So that is very, very important. And parents have also realized, I'll just add one point here. Parents, in fact, we as an institute, and I'm sure all of us, we are getting a lot of applause from parents on how creative teachers have been into imparting education, because education in this COVID situation is not just, covering the curriculum. I think it is establishing the right engagement with the child. So that is what is happening.
Thanks, man. Coming to the your inputs regarding the teaching the move become the best practice for making the aspirational services.
You asked me, Abhishek?
Nikhil sir.
Yeah. Yes, Abhishek, can you just repeat the question, please? It was not so clear.
What the best practices we should do so that we can make the teaching the most aspirational services.
Okay. First of all, let me start by saying that according to me, teaching is an art. It's an art. It is a passion that requires you to drive and to be a good teacher. However well qualified you are doing a PhD or a postgraduate or something like that. If you can't get down to the level of your children, your students, it doesn't serve any purpose. So it is something, according to me, it's an inbuilt thing that should drive you first. The kind of system that we are functioning into, yeah, it can be aspirational by, changing the B.Ed course curriculum, making it more autonomous, or letting the teacher do a lot of things so that she can experiment to see that the learning outcome that she wishes for her students that are achieved. The most important thing is the pay package and all those things are improving. With the 7th pay commission, the teachers, and especially if you see the government teachers, the scales are very good. So that is one aspect of it. Other than that, Western countries, if you see, they are having a very robust kind of an education ecosystem. We as a country is also having a very good ecosystem. The only difference that I find between these two systems is there is reverence. Reverence means a deep respect for something, which is there only in India. Across the globe, I have not seen anywhere where there is so deep respect for learning. So that itself is a biggest motivator for we all educators to be in education field, because that gives you a sense of satisfaction, that gives you a sense of accomplishment, and that drives you. So like you asked the question, how to make it more aspirational, it depends upon the individual. There is no, the set of rules that we can make it aspirational, but it is, you have a classic set of very good teachers. And that's why Indians are shining globally. It is because of the primary teacher, the teacher that has taught in a village school, a teacher that has taught in a Jilla Parishad school. That is why we have CEOs leading multinationals. So there is a lot of aspiration already there, and this all things will further motivate it. But that's my take on it. Yeah. Yes, Abhishek.
Thanks, Nikhil sir. And over to you, Harsh sir. We are closing the session with the Harsh inputs. And Harsh, your inputs regarding the same question, sir.
Yeah, so Surbhi ji had raised a really interesting point about how to, the aspirational aspect for teachers. So I truly believe that we go through different phases of learning, and once we reach, let's say, we're given like let's say 5 to 10,000 hours. And Malcolm Gladwell has written a book, and he's written about 10,000 hours to mastery. So I feel that once you reach 10,000 hours of mastery in something, you become a world changer. You start to become a curriculum. Not only can you change your curriculum, you can reach beyond your curriculum. You can reach into your school, and you can come up with like with a topic or some idea which can truly be, like world changing. So for example, Kiran Veer Sethi, she's started the Design for Change, initiative, and it's been taken up so much steam that everywhere now you have students who are now they are students from Design Thinking Academy who are now basically giving TED talks. So essentially, what I feel is that there is a frustration period in learning, which is people have to go through. And if you are passionate about the teaching profession, and there'll be ups and downs where things may not go your way. Your principal may be unreasonable, your coordinator or somebody else is unreasonable. It happens in everyday life. But if you stick to your conviction and you come up with, you really go, into the depth of a topic, you really go deep, then you can solve some of the very localized problems which your environment is facing. So I feel that that can, once you reach a mastery, I think the inspiration is always there. Obviously, there is a monetary component as well. And for that, I truly feel that there has to be free market which has to rule. So once we have free market, parents are willing to, spend anything for the quality of education. So once we open up the markets, and we'll see that the best teachers and, allow people to have alternative curriculum such as IB and IGCSE curriculum, international Cambridge style. So they have a lot of curriculums which are very, very interesting and very, very new. So I hope that we already are moving in that same direction. So let's look forward to that.
Thank you, Harsal. And by this, I request to all panelists, thank you for this wonderful panel and wonderful discussion. And we will 100% we will generate the report on this, on the each question, and we will share the report to each of the panelists. And I thanks to all the participants. And if you have any questions to the panelists, you can directly contact to the offline also, and you can follow them on the Facebook, Twitter, and the LinkedIn. Our each panelist is available on their social handles. You can directly contact to them also. And thank you, Surbhi ma'am. Thank you, Astha ma'am. Thank you, Harsh sir. And thank you, Nikhil sir, for joining us in the School Tech Summit. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.